not remember what I said.
Well, yeah. So if it's okay, I'll just do like a little intro and then we'll,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So
we
I
can
just,
riff a little bit.
yeah, yeah. And this is really more to have the full thing for people to get to know you, particularly the teachers. And I'll be using, like you said, little snippets,
Right.
of this richness as we go. So, this is an embodiyou video cast, and we're introducing practices and teachers. And I am really grateful to be joined by Jenn Thomas, who I know from a yin yoga teacher training that I just got such a beautiful download from Jenn on the philosophy that supports yin as well as the practice of yin. And it was just this really natural interweaving of a physical practice and, a contemplative practice, a practice to understand oneself. And I really resonated with Jenn because I feel like, between her orientation towards internal family systems and mine towards Hakomi, which is the somatic therapy, there was just this affinity that I had for the way that she taught, that everything that she said, I just felt like this inner yes of agreement. So I couldn't be more grateful to have her in the embodiyou teacher family. And so, Jenn, we're going to meander as we just were before I hit record, but I'd love for you to just talk about, anything that comes up from what I just said around, your relationship to the practice of yin, the philosophy, the Taoist philosophy behind it, and your relationship to teaching all of that.
Mm. So for me, yeah, yin yoga was a life changer so many years ago. Um, when I first found it, it was like, oh, right, this is such a beautiful marriage of the contemplative practices that sing in my heart to the body piece that I needed so much to remain connected to. I didn't want to just go into the meditative world. And so I also had not at that point really understood the role of Taoist philosophy, even in the Buddhist traditions that I had been studying and being introduced to. So there was a way in which the nature component became really strong for me once I started to unpack a little bit of the Taoist intentions. And different teachers on the national scale in Yin perhaps use the practice differently. So whatever traditions are of interest could be infused into the Yin yoga style. But I don't know, not but, and Taoism seems to be a nice thread that everyone connects to, at least a little bit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, giving a big nod to Paul Grilly for putting so many pieces together in the early days, and then to Sarah and Bernie and Joe Fee and so many people for taking the piece that really makes them vibrant and developing it more, and then to the level of people who are started studying with me, not with me personally, but at the same time that I started studying with some of those people, to developing our individual ways for finding ourselves in a body, finding ourselves, oh yeah, we're humans, we're not going to escape this, sorry, and developing a way to both acknowledge that and live with that and from that more fully in a broader and I want to say bigger way, bigger than me, like a
Mm.
bigger than me way, like, So yeah, you said something about IFS and I'm like, oh yeah, IFS changed my life. Like understanding that I have lots of voices and lots of thoughts and lots of ways to be. There's not
Mm.
just one. It's, meeting so many different teachers also has given me the confidence to know that I'm another one of
Mm.
those many, many teachers out there who has a connection to a path and to teachings and to practices. And so my way could support lots of people. And to not put that or make that available seems counter to who I am.
Hmm.
So
So it's the
making,
natural thing to do. It's the
yeah,
natural
it's the
unfolding.
natural thing to do.
And
Yep.
I had an IFS practitioner say to me once, there are as many parts within us as there are stars in the sky.
Mm.
And I really took that with me into my Hakomi training because it helped me understand how many different truths we can hold at the same time within us. And yeah, it's just been an anchor for me. And something that I heard you say towards the beginning was finding ourselves in a body. And there's sort of, okay, I have a body, but it's also finding ourselves in a body. I just sort of was riffing on that a little bit. It just sparked something for me of the space that we can hold as teachers that, yeah, when we get out of the way with whatever intention we have as teachers to give students a particular experience, we can let them, find whatever they need to find in that one class or one moment.
Yeah, remaining connected to the work that invites me to move beyond the kind of ego-driven self or the any one part of myself being the guidance system and moving beyond that to something greater has also been both a lifeline and a opportunity to grow and expand and not get caught up in like being a teacher. I
Mm-hmm.
teach, but in a less formal way than the teaching as a profession might um, define itself. I mean, I feel like there's, all the pieces around leading by example. There's the qualities of, continuous study. There's the willingness to put yourself out there, which at the beginning I was saying, that's the hard part. Like, how do you put yourself in a state of truth in the moment? Because truth is relative, that makes you vulnerable, but also allows you to be seen. Like, all of that feels so necessary because it's what creates the sense of being okay and being safe and being able to look for yourself. So there's only those ways for me that I really learned was by deeply connecting with the words and actions of others,
Mm.
like
And
how
what,
they actually did it. So,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I'm curious the way the Tao kind of supports all of that in you and how you move through the world and how you teach.
Well, I think one big thing is that it shows both the small, practical, on the ground, like the master does this, and throughout all the verses that reminds me, oh, like what if I stepped back and let things flow through? What would happen? What if my judgment was less important? What if my voice was, I remembered that it's one of many, right?
Mm.
What if? So the idea that things will continuously be in a dynamic dance with both the expansive nature of things and the contractive nature of things is just a truth that we can keep looking into nature and find. And by nature, I mean the nature of things, like whatever's here, including us. We are part of nature. Like, nature is not just the grass growing. Nature is my heart beating.
Mm-hmm.
Nature is you and I talking to one another on Zoom. It's like, nature is the connection that occurs because we make ourselves available and take the time to see and be seen by one another. So I feel like the Tao speaks to that. So the texts and the people who studied these texts and what they have to say are all guidance. They're all
Mm-hmm.
guidance. So, when we talked about doing this Tao Lab class or, space, it's really to say, like, how does this inspire and guide And what is it in that that catches your attention? And of course, anytime I ask that in a group or of another person with myself, we both learn something. Like, so I always learn something new. That's
Hmm.
part of what makes me like to say I'm not an expert. I'm a student, and I'm happy to share what guides me. So,
Yeah, and that brings up a question for somebody who might be newer to yin, or to the Tao. To that student, why would the body be so important to be included in the exploration of yin? I mean, of the Tao philosophy. Like, why is the body a key component of that? And there's no
it's
wrong answer. It's just like want to like kind of.
right. So, yeah, I mean, it's a natural form. It's a form. Like Taoist philosophy says there's some source. There's a way that source has energy that dances with one another, yin and yang. There's a way that that yin and yang is made, begins to be understood through the five elements. Um, and then from those elements, all form is, we could say created, but all form comes manifest, 10,000 forms.
Mhm,
And then we go back. So it's in both directions, and our bodies are that actual tactile expression of that. We aren't here without the body. There is
mhm,
no this without that. It's all this and that.
and like within the body are all the elements too. Like, and
Oh yeah. And yin and yang and the Tao. Like the way of things is contained in everything, and everything is contained in the way of all things. So yeah. And it's tricky because when we say that, it's easy to divorce yourself from your practical everyday experience of living. So for me, the yin is one of the ways that I can continuously remember that I live as a human in a body, in relationship to all things and all people everywhere, even if I'm only meeting you in this moment. You
mhm,
represent the whole,
mhm. I loved
always.
reading. I loved reading Sarah Powers, like the intro of like her relationship to yin and how it started. And I don't remember all of the details, but I know that she was, sitting and listening to like a Dharma talk,
Mhm.
and just got into a pose, like a stretching pose. And now we think of yin as stressing the connective tissue, but it's a long held pose, where you're still, and there's a little bit of discomfort. And she found that she was able to sort of take in the the words of the philosophy differently when she was holding this pose. And I just thought that that was such a beautiful moment, like an example of integration, of like bringing in this information to the whole self. And yeah, it's just so amazing that you have been able to study with her among other teachers, and bring your intimate understanding of the practice and share it the way that you do. And it's
It's
just
interesting
really
to bring
beautiful.
up that story of her, because I feel like when I got involved, I went to a workshop with Sarah,
Hmm.
and then I found myself lining up at the end of the workshop because I had never heard the teachings in the way that I heard them that day through that practice. And it was an evening and then an all day thing. And but at the end of the all day thing, the woman that I had gone there with, I said to her, I have to go up there and talk to her. And she was like, "Oh my God, you never do that." I was like, "Yeah, I just have to. I'll be out in a little bit." So I get in line. I'm the last one in line, and when it's my turn, I didn't even know what to say except that I feel like my life just got changed, and I'm not sure what to do next. And I never talked to the teacher, so I'm not even sure I'm asking you anything. I just needed to come up and be to tell you that, like, I feel changed right now, and something has shifted dramatically, and I will be, looking at that. And she said, "I think you need to come to my Insight Yoga Institute." So that's what I did. 4 months later, I was enrolled in that, and have, not more recently been involved, but if I could, I would. And now, of course, the coronavirus makes some of the work with Sarah not available in the same way. She's an international teacher, so traveling that way is not available to us right now.
Mm-hmm.
But so
Mm-hmm.
it's just interesting to me that you brought up that story, because I feel like that's what happened to me, was that I got drawn to a path through someone's teaching, and I
Mm-hmm.
have not stopped following that path, though it's different from hers, certainly, but all other people who I was joined with during that period of time, we've all gone in our particular ways. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really important. We also share so much, and um, our capacity for that continuous evolution is great,
Yeah,
unending.
and
In this,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you. I apologize. I just got excited. um, the the piece that I'm picking up on is like, the contemplation. I feel like the layperson thinks of it happening up here, and yin really, I feel, helps us filter these insights down into the body in this really profound way that can create these moments of I'm not the same anymore. uh, so I just think how beautiful. I love that. I really treasure that story about your experience with Sarah. It sounds like she was able to take her transformation that she understood that moment, of like taking in philosophy while putting the body in a particular shape that made her whole self more open, and she transmitted some of that, or some version of that, to you just by embodying it herself. And yeah, that's amazing, and that's
I mean,
why we're
everyone
here.
has, everyone has an experience of this already, by the way. Like, everybody already has a moment of deep knowing that they
Hmm.
could point to in their life. So these practices let us choose more consciously to tap our deeper knowing than to go to the intellectual, busy mind space of figuring stuff out. So that by, using yin yoga, any kind of yoga, really, any kind of yoga can bring you back into the body and towards your wellspring of knowing, in an intimate way. Yin just gives a lot more space for seeing what's there,
Mm.
where we don't have to pay attention to moving from place to place. The other thing I think that's really true about yin is that, in that contact with the um, connective tissue and the energy field and meridians, the whole energetic being, the subtle body, we're asked, almost, we're provoked to contemplate.
Mm.
Yeah, we try to escape, actually, some of that stillness where things can be seen, and then there's the fodder. There's the material for practice. It's right there. So the yin yoga also has that to it too, which most of my students know. When she starts talking like that, um,
Oh shit! Now I really have to face
there might be
myself.
something not so comfortable coming up, and I'm like,
Like I'm adjusting.
adjust your seat, find your shape. Don't go too far. So a lot of people don't listen to those pieces too, when we say, like, it's up to you. And your job is to begin to discern what the edge is and what's appropriate. So how to be with yourself. This is the practice that allows us to be with other people without going too far, not going far enough.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It's not, this is our practice ground.
Mm-hmm.
Being our own selves as fully as we possibly can. This is where we begin, but we're not limited to that. It's infused, diffused into the world in beautiful, beautiful ways, which is why Sarah, I think, just doing Sarah and offering the practices and the teachings that she was so, passionate about and understood. Like, she's also brilliant. So just saying, the woman is brilliant and a scholar and articulate and so many things, that it's just great to have women out there who are um, that
Who are
as well.
leading that?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and the way you're describing it, it's really just, this isn't just happening on the mat. The mat just creates the space to slow down, to, like you said, see what's there. And I think that's a really good reminder to a newer practitioner, or to any practitioner, any yogi or meditator, is that we're the same everywhere we go. And when we slow down and meditate, or hold a pose in contemplation, we're just getting to see what that is. That's it. It's really simple when it comes down to it. It's like just know. We just want to hold space for people to, and for ourselves to know.
Right. Shine a light in those spots.
Hmm.
Like if you knew that you were tight in your neck, but you didn't understand that some of that tightness was actually coming from your hip, you don't see that until you have an opportunity to experience yourself as a body that's connected, intertwined, a matrix, So, that's the other thing too, that I say, a lot. You might not know, but you'll learn by showing up and making space to see,
Hmm.
right? You have to look first, and then you see what you see. So I'm like, yeah. And for people who are new to being in their body, great. This is an even better practice, because when you're new to it, you're not going to put all your habits and patterns on it right away.
Mm.
Like, there's such an open space and opportunity for expansion that once you get really familiar with the practice, you can get lost in your old habits.
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
beautiful. There are variations and modifications and options available for everyone, including the person who doesn't, bend easily or feels restricted by injury. Like, we have chairs and pillows and couches, and especially with these online versions, there's so many opportunities to customize to the body that you happened to be born into. This is the
Hmm.
one you got, so let's use that one for awakening, not another one, right?
I always say that. I say to my class, like, you only have one body to do yoga with, yours. That's it. That's all you got. Work with it. Like, and that's really for, like, particularly for vinyasa, when somebody's like, reaching for the floor for triangle, when really they'd be better served, being in a higher version of the pose, like not quite so ambitious, and less physically aligned. So yeah, I think, we were saying before about the ego, getting the ego out of the way and just being with what is in the body is really, um,
Learning how to do that is a whole journey, right? Learning that you're not in alignment is
mhm,
equal to learning that you are. This is alignment,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
It's, learning that you are, what was the word you just used? I really liked it. For overextending, going too far.
Ambitious, maybe.
Ambitious, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't recognize that ambition is playing a role right there. Like,
Mhm,
you don't see it, or you might not do it, especially if you were being spoken to about that, or that was part of the contemplation. But it might not be. The contemplation might be about reaching, and so you think, like, I got to reach for that, not realizing that what's driving that reach is not your curiosity but your ambition. Those are two
mm,
different things to reach,
mhm,
right? Your reach might actually be pulling back. The reach might be being softer, reaching into softness, not reaching into a further expression of some physical shape that seems ideal. So there's so many layers and nuances that these practices invite the practitioner to over and over. So the real answer every time we don't get it is practice.
mm.
Do it again.
Yeah, I think that would be like, I want to respect your time and wrap in a little bit, but
Mm.
to anybody listening, teacher or student, why is regular practice so important? From your standpoint as a teacher, practitioner, anything that comes to you, just love to just, my goal and mission is always to inspire people to practice steadily, and I'm curious to hear from your vantage point, why we should do that.
Yeah, well, sadhana, respecting yourself as a spiritual being, the magnificence of the life that you've been gifted, uh, pausing to recognize that and offer reverence into the moment. For me, that's the reason for practice. Um, yeah, and that includes then uh, taking good care, not going beyond what's yours, not missing out on picking up what is yours, right?
Mm-hmm.
So practice to me is all of that comes through practice. Without the stopping and the pausing and the allowing and the choosing consciously, the direction and the, recognizing willingness, then what are we but automatons?
Mm-hmm.
Why are so many people seeking? Because they haven't had a chance to look and see both what's already here and how and why and what they would like to do with what's here, how they want to engage or connect with that. So those are all reasons to practice, which include the physical, getting healthy in your body, understanding your particular place in time and what's kind.
Mm-hmm.
I could go on and on. Like yamas and niyamas, the Eightfold Path of the Buddha, they're all speaking to why to practice.
The choosing consciously, really, the phrase that you said is what I picked up on. Is the foundation of Hakomi is creating space for choice. So it's like becoming aware of how you're organized so that you can have space to either keep doing that or choose differently. And so that's the laboratory that practice, I'm hearing you say, and I agree, that's the laboratory that practice opens up, is more space to choose consciously, like with awareness.
With
That we,
awareness.
yeah, like, because you're right. I think, I mean, I suffer from this, and I know that many listening do, that yeah, I can go on autopilot. Absolutely. I've definitely had that experience of driving to the grocery store and not knowing how I got there, or taking a walk and not really noticing what things were like around me for half a mile. And like, where was I? Parts of me were probably scattered everywhere. And so, but the practice over and over and over of, sitting with myself and on a meditation cushion and on a yoga mat in so many different forms, has at least given me the awareness to notice when I was not aware a moment ago, and I think that's the practice, is just keep returning back to, what's happening now, and knowing how cute we are. Like, we're organized to survive, and then we're laying on like this more advanced part of the brain we're creeping up into with practice, the place where we can choose and witness um, isn't where we always naturally rest, especially right now, like with COVID, right? Things are so stressful for so many. We're impacted in different ways, some financially or work-wise, or the nature of work has changed, or they're always alone, or they're always bombarded with the same people all of the time. And so to me, this is a perfect time to up your practice.
Right. Slow yourself down. You did say something that I realized that can be really tricky, which is the idea that we're supposed to be in this state of intimate awareness continuously.
Mm.
And so I have to remember for myself that it's not a problem when I discover that I haven't been aware of something. It's just actually the way that it is. Recognizing it as this moment of coming back to being aware, and
Mm-hmm.
not preferencing one versus the other, because that preference can lead you down a path that's pretty dark
Mm.
or
Mm-hmm.
difficult, right?
Right, in terms of that being a bad thing
Well,
of
that then you're constantly, the mind comes online to constantly struggle to bring you to awareness, when awareness is a naturally occurring state of being when the mind rests on a point or in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
Awareness expands and everything is contained in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like hearing and asking yourself to listen out to the outskirts and then draw your hearing into the inside of the room. You don't lose the beeping horn. You're just not focused on it. It's still
Mm-hmm.
there. You might still hear it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Awareness is what is able to allow that to happen. So it is already here and always here. It's just us attuning more and more to it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well
not
put.
making it a state or a thing that we're striving for, because it can
Right.
get tricky.
Yeah, it's like the radio dial, just tuning into that frequency of um, what's happening now, what's happening now, what's
Yeah.
happening now.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and so yeah, I don't think I certainly didn't mean to put a value on that, but I appreciate you naming that of the trickiness. I think that can creep in some of the mindfulness kind of focused teachings. But yeah, it's just how am I organized? You know, am I organized towards my mind thinking ahead into the future or into the past, or am I able to be in the present moment? And there's no good or bad about any of that. It's just how we're organized. It's just is. Yeah.
I appreciate that language around organization. That is can be really helpful.
Yeah, that's a beautiful Hakomi term of just like how are we put together. And so yeah, these practices help us do that. And I think the Tao Lab is going to be, I love the kitty cat coming through the background.
Yeah, here he goes.
um
He wants
oh
to.
he's going to feature good. Yeah, I think the
Yeah,
Tao Lab is going to be a beautiful exploration of how we're organized, and you know, how we relate to whatever the Tao is offering. And as I understand, it'll be a week by week exploration of different verses from the Tao. Is that
yeah.
right?
I'm going to start at the beginning, just because there are 81 verses, and we'll start with a verse. Some weeks there might be 2 verses, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not limited to that. So it will include some body practice. It will include breath work and meditation. It will include inquiry. It will include discussion. Um, yeah, they're all the pieces that we could explore from and for and to. So we'll see what the guidance is and what different people, what they hit on. Just like you say about something I say, oh, what struck me is, or,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's because that is how, well, first of all, it's how we learn, Second of all, it's everything is always impacted by everything else. So there's that right there. Like, I think I know it this way, and then so and so says it this way, and I'm like, wow, now I know it this way. Here's another thing that got created or that came into being, revealed in front of us. So I
Mm-hmm.
can't wait for all that. Can't
Yes.
wait.
I
Yeah.
can't wait either. And I am really grateful and honored that you're part of this teacher family. You have so much to offer, just even just in the very way that you relate to these practices and this philosophy, and the way that you share that so
And
beautifully.
that,
And the way you
sorry.
share your kitty cat is amazing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we can't stop him. He's a 20-pounder.
Yeah, no, you can't. He's
There's no
just
way
a
I'm picking him up.
he's a train. Cool. Well, yeah, I think that was all I had to just get you talking so that other teachers and students can get a sense of you and the way that you teach and practice and are. So
Thank you.
thank
I
you.
love you. We'll be talking about source and energy and elements and manifestations. So everything.
Everything, all the things that you could possibly need to
Right.
just be. Thank you so
Embody.
much.
Yeah, I love you. Thank you.
Thank you.